So let's start from the beginning, probably before you had a phone. Tell us about your journey in SAUSD and how we got to this table to have this conversation today.
Welcome back to Artful Pods of Wisdom, where today we go deep into how the arts shape, heal, and connect us in the most human ways. Join us as we journey through conversations with muralist Alex Sanchez and other community voices from Robin McNair, Elvin Capulli, and your host, Sofia Cuevas, exploring the role of arts in education and personal transformation. Today's discussion isn't just about techniques and performances. It's about how the arts serve as a foundational element in building creative, resilient communities and individuals beyond job, college, career, or product. Let's join the conversation.
Oh man, okay. So as far as I can remember, I started drawing when I was 8. Actually, I have a core memory when I was 8 years old. My mother, pobrecita, my mom, she it was hard for her, to make ends meet. And I remember this core memory where she took me to the 99-cent store. She bought me a pad and some pencils. And I believe, from what I remember, that was when my interest for drawing started. Uh, and then I can recall, after that, I was very persistent with drawing. I would draw regularly. I kind of felt that it was a safe place for me. There was a lot of trouble going on around me. We were constantly moving. I never had a stable home. A lot of family members, unfortunately, they got brainwashed into the gang lifestyle. Some of them, became addicts. So there was a lot of trouble around me, and I felt like art was my safe place. I didn't want to do drugs. I'm very thankful. I stayed away from that. I'm also thankful. I was able to be persistent in my willingness to say no. Um, Constantly, since I was moving back and forth with my mother and my sister to different areas in Santa Ana, wherever she can afford. I went to a lot of schools. In each school, there's a lot of neighborhoods, a lot of gang activity. And a lot of these guys, they wanted me to join their neighborhood just because I was attending school there. So I'm very proud, that I stood up for myself and I said, no, I don't want to do this.
And then Alex came in, gave a presentation of everything. And one, his story was just very motivating. And then also, I just thought it would be a good opportunity, even if I didn't see it as in something I would do in my career wise. I feel like it would be a really good hobby or just something to do like that.
What early core memory do you have of creating? What core memory do you have when you were affirmed simply for being you? Alex's early experiences highlight how art serves as a refuge and a platform for expression. Research from trauma informed practices shows that engaging in the arts can significantly improve mental health and foster resilience. So, then, how can we leverage these insights to create more inclusive, supportive, educational environments and communities where creativity is a form of survival and growth, where we can thrive? Let's join the conversation.
My artistic career started in 2017. I want to say when I did my first mural, the Vanessa Guillen, that was my first community mural. I wanted to do something a little different. I knew that I wanted to be a portrait artist using spray paint only. That's been a goal of mine. I actually have it written on a whiteboard. That my ultimate goal is to become a well-known muralist that only uses spray paint and is culturally driven. And so instead of painting like an artist, somebody famous, I wanted to do something a little bit more meaningful to my community. During that time, I remember Vanessa Guillen, the soldier who was a victim of rape, sexual assault, and she also was murdered within her own unit in the army. That kind of moved me because my cousin, she was on active duty during that time, and so I took upon myself to portray Vanessa's story to the community. I felt like it was important. I felt like Coming from a single mother household, my mother, a lot of times I recollect her, crying to herself sometimes. So this mural, it hit hard because I wanted to represent the woman of my community. And that's where it started. I had zero fear of what the critics were going to say, the graffiti community, because I come from that background. And, I just went for it. I took the leap of faith. And here we are. It's amazing how life works when we give life a chance.
And in your role with us, you're helping us with this graffiti awareness, graffiti arts program, helping to support students to build skills and knowledge to be able to create their own murals, but to also create a mural for the city. So, how do you see your role in helping to shape students' paths in maybe ways that you received or didn't receive? And who are the players that you're involved with that have been part of your role?
I've thought about this question, and the most simplest way that I could put it is, it's a little bit of street talk, but I want to be the big homie that I never had.
Yeah.
Now let me put into a perspective, right? So when I was younger, I used to hang out with older guys, right? A lot of these guys, they were from the streets. Usually it was like my neighbors or people, I lived, people within the community. I grew up on Sullivan and McFadden most of my life. And I grew up with those guys around there. And unfortunately, they were bad influences, really bad influences. I'm talking about, I've seen things that no 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid, should see. And I feel like now I have this responsibility, not only because I have my son watching me, but I feel like I'm providing my duty to my community, and I feel like it's my calling, to be here, to use my talent in a positive way, uh, and also to if I told myself if I can inspire at least one student from this program, I feel like my mission has been accomplished. And we've only started this program not too long ago, and I can already see the differences in a lot of these students.
Something that drew me to graffiti art was that I already originally enjoyed drawing and sketching, and I also did a few tattooing here and there. So, yeah.
Reflecting on Alex's transformation from a student to a community leader through art, we see a vivid example of how artistic engagement goes beyond mere expression. It builds life skills. According to the World Economic Forum, creativity is among the top skills for the future, intertwining emotional intelligence with innovative problem solving. In a world of fast paced tech evolution and generative AI usage, how can we expand these human centric opportunities, ensuring arts education is a core part of developing adaptable, forward thinking individuals?
We can see the art programs more as a public safety, especially in our area, because a lot of people might just see it as an art program. Me personally, I look at it as a public safety measure because we're attacking the root cause of what's leading the youth to seek the streets. It's usually when they're bored, when they're not occupied in something that they are truly interested in. I feel like art, as you guys saw today, there's a lot of students that maybe they don't like math, maybe they don't like history, but look at how engaged they were today. All of them, every single student today was engaged, and I feel like we need to treat it as a public safety measure, because when the youth is not occupied in something they're interested in, more than likely they're gonna end up, you know, looking to the streets. So I feel like the art programs, any art program, honestly, I've seen guys in my neighborhood that have even tried uh, pottery at Los Amigos, right? I've seen some young students, they dress and walk and talk like they're from the neighborhood, and they're trying out pottery. That's really interesting to see. We need to observe these things and acknowledge them, because they're really powerful, especially when you have, students that are in a toxic environment at home. They rather be at school. We have students who are, you know, struggling at home with their family, and they go to school and they try something that interests them, I feel like that's really good for their mental.
Yeah, agreed. And pottery or working with ceramics is really different than like what you do and some of the other art forms, and it uses your whole brain all at the same time.
Right.
It has a lot of therapeutic value. I'm curious, Alex. I want you to tell us stories about, first of all, your teacher influences that you had in SAUSD and your role and what's happening now in your Reconnect. And then tell us a little bit about a couple of the student stories that you're experiencing with their success in being involved with them here in the school district also.
Okay. Definitely. First and foremost, I would like to shout out Mrs. Peña. She was my art teacher at Lauren Grisette back in 2009 and 2010. Miss Peña, man, she is you know, you ladies know her. She's very sweet, very heartwarming, and that's how she is with everybody. As far as I remember, you know, I was that troubled kid, always wearing my headphones, the ones with the string. You know, nowadays everybody has a Bluetooth, so you know, I had the ones with the strings, my hoodie on. I didn't care about life. You know, I didn't. It was just like that, unfortunately. And Miss Peña was always kind. You know, she respected me for who I was. She understood, you know, that I probably had some problems. So she was very caring. So I appreciate her for that. And also, you know, she would also catch me doodling stuff that wasn't on topic to her lecture, but she understood that I really liked it. So that's what I like about her too. You know, that
Hmm.
she just understands her students. And then I also have Dr. Apostle. She was my chemistry teacher at Lauren Grisette as well. Uh, Very sweet lady, but she was also very assertive. That's the word. She was very assertive to her students. And a full circle moment is my story. One of my murals was featured on Voices of OC, and Miss Apostle happened to read it, and she was inspired by it. And at the bottom was my email. She emailed me, not knowing I was her student, and I didn't know, you know, who she was at the, you know, at the time when I was replying back to the emails. We agreed to meet, you know, to work on a concept for a mural at Godinez. And man, it was just a full circle moment. It was an awesome feeling, you know, being able to see Dr. Apostle, and we created a really beautiful, vibrant mural that combines science and art
Oh,
into one of the courtyards at Godinez.
yeah.
And let's see, for the second part of the question, stories regarding students, man, there's several students. I do want to point out one of them. You know, he has stories and pictures of him, you know, out and about in the streets, holding weapons, drinking, smoking, you know, all that stuff that they teach us that supposedly is cool out in the streets. And what's really interesting and what's moved me and giving me this sort of, man, you have a responsibility here, Alex, like, you know, let's go on and forward and just keep doing what we're doing genuinely as we have been. This student, you know, he DM me and he asked me, he's like, hey man, I would like to start doing what you're doing. Like, can you help me and teach me how I can sell my drawings? And then he sent me a separate link to another page that he has, and it's a bunch of his drawings. Nothing related to what he has over here of him holding guns, drugs, alcohol. And then you look at this page, and this is like his other side of his personality, which is really interesting to see. And uh, that's why I'm so grateful to be part of this program, because I feel like I've accomplished my mission just with that student alone. And we just started this program.
It's honestly really, really like a really good opportunity. And I'm super, super grateful that I was a part of it. I've been having a lot of fun. Like right off the bat, we got into spray painting, and he's teaching us a lot of different methods, like the doodle patterns and stuff. And I'm glad that we all get to collaborate on one mural.
In the narrative of our community murals, every color and shape crafted by Alex symbolizes a step toward communal healing and understanding, alongside with students. These artistic endeavors remind us that education in the arts isn't about producing the most or the best, but about crafting stories of resilience and connection. How do we continue to foster these spaces where competition is overshadowed by the collective joy of creation and building of community to not only heal, but grow?
Hi, I don't know if you can see me because you're on your computer and I'm to your right.
I can only see Sophia.
Yeah. So I'm to the right of you. But earlier you mentioned a couple of things that caught my ear, and it just you brought it back up right now. One, the power of social media and how you can utilize it as a tool for yourself, in this case as an artist. And then earlier you caught my ear because you mentioned an LLC and umbrella companies, because I've been discussing that with a friend lately. How would you share with students, how they can use social media to empower themselves? How can they look into business? And I'm curious your story of how you started with one company, like as an artist, and then just branching out into different, what it may be seemingly unrelated, businesses and companies.
Right. So for the first question, uh, so I try to tell the students all the time, that spoke about it earlier. Our phones can be our biggest distraction, or it could be a useful tool for anything, basically, personal self. If you want to be more organized, if you have goals in mind, I use my phone as a goal measuring tool. And also for social media, I am very strict with social media. I have a timer. I'm only allowed to be on it 30 minutes a day. That's it. So within the app, you can actually put a timer how much time you want to spend per day on the app. And I feel like that's been very useful because it's hard. Don't get me wrong. It's really hard to be um, assertive, to be organized. It's taken me a lot of trial and error. I'm not perfect. It might seem like everything's under control, but sometimes I want to pull my hair out. But it's part of business. It's part of the journey. And like I tell my son, we went to Disneyland not too long ago, and he got on his first roller coaster. It was the funniest thing ever, his facial expressions. But anyways, when we got off, I told him, I was like, buddy, what was your favorite part, the up or the down? And he said, well, the up is like very calm, like you don't feel it. But when we go down, that's the exciting part. That's when I had goosebumps in my stomach. And I was like, well, think about it. It's kind of like life, right? Sometimes we go up, sometimes we go down. You just got to enjoy the whole ride.
Considering the personal journeys shared today, we see that arts education is not just about learning to create, but about learning to live. Each challenge faced by our artists and students becomes a lesson in personal alchemy, transforming obstacles into opportunities for growth and self-discovery. How can we better support these journeys in our schools and communities, ensuring that every individual feels valued, not for their output, but for their unique perspectives?
And to be really honest with you, I started a lot of these endeavors because, one, I want to say it's how do I call it? My my mind's always thinking about, like, what if this one is not doing so good? At least I can rely on this one. I don't know. It's just like a safety measure, to be honest with you. But I have told myself that when one skyrockets, I'm okay to put the other ones aside. It's just, it's gonna come one way or another. It's gonna come. I can feel it. Um, I've been working hard on everything I've been doing, and a lot of it has to do with just not being afraid. Like I was telling all the students today, you can't be afraid. And I know it's easier said than done.
Yep. How do you follow your own creative voice and build your own confidence? Because at the end of the day, you get to decide what it is you're going to do. And how, as Sophia is saying, do we foster that in schools for kids to have the freedom and the ability to create their own path, just like you've done? Because what I heard too is you've done a lot of things outside of school. A lot of your journey was you got a lot of education for your art, for your other endeavors that didn't happen within your education. So what kinds of advice would you give to kids to help themselves on their own journey to find themselves as their fully expressed human creative self?
Man, see, the reason why I did that is because it's been hard. I'm not gonna lie.
Can I chime in as well? I just had a question. It was, we were asking you advice for kids, and then we're talking about, all these things like don't be afraid to fail and go for it and all this. But I know sometimes the reality is there is failure. And I think that sometimes scares kids, especially now. I've noticed that in a weird way, they're more afraid to fail, I feel like, than when we were kids. That might be just an assumption, but I feel like that's what I'm seeing. And so I'm wondering if you could share a story maybe of a failure of yours, if you're comfortable, where you're like, this didn't work out for me, but I learned from this situation. Or maybe you have a couple stories like that helped you grow as a person, artist, or entrepreneur.
Excellent.
Definitely. I have several actually. But I'll make them, quick. So the first one, let's go to my epoxy business. My very first floor, I didn't cover the grouts correctly, and when I put the top coat of epoxy, the grouts were basically like the lines from the tile. They were visible even after we put the epoxy.
Yeah.
Huge mistake, because then I basically had to work backwards now, had to grind everything off and redo the whole thing again. Uh, what did I do? I laughed about it, went home, sobbed about it a little bit, you know, and it's just, man, it's just part of life, I would say, right? And come back the next day and redo it with the positive attitude. What more can we do? I can't just give up and leave the floor there. I had to fix my error. With art, there was one mural that I did. It was a commission for a smoke shop. In all honesty, those are the first commissions that I was getting. A lot of smoke shops and like private residents, that sort of thing, right? Studios where rappers would record. And one time, I was freehanding the sketch and I completely messed it up. And I had to redo it all over again. And I started getting nervous because there was a crowd around me. Worst feeling ever. But look, I didn't give up. I learned from it. I learned there's other techniques I could use. That's why I invested in my career as an artist.
As we look to the future, how can we ensure that arts education remains at the forefront of our educational priorities, especially as we navigate a world increasingly dominated by digital and automated technologies, where our failed attempts and experiments are where to learn from and lean on, rather than hide from and fear? Let's start to discuss practical strategies for maintaining this focus amidst evolving educational landscapes, ensuring that the arts continue to enrich our students' lives and our community's cultural fabric.
Hope is a form of resistance, too, and rebellion, if you will. So thank you for sharing your hope and your passion and your guidance and your love for this work and your love for the kids and your love of the community, because that really is evident in who you are and how you show up for everyone around you.
No,
No,
thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much.
Again,
Again,
I feel like I
I feel
have
like I
this
have
sense
this
of
sense of
responsibility.
responsibility,
And
and
if I
if
can
I can
change
change
one
one
student's
student's
perspective
perspective
to
to
think this
think this
way
way,
in the
in the
sense of
sense of
like
like
we all
we
have
all have
choices,
choices,
I feel
I feel
like,
like
man,
man,
it's
it's
just
just
amazing.
amazing.
Having willingness, having the power to say yes or no to certain things, being able to step back and reflect a little bit. These things sound so simple and they could be so hard and difficult for a lot of us. But once we start understanding it, especially if we see it being applied from another person that we relate to, I feel like that's really powerful.
As we conclude today's episode, it's clear that the arts hold a unique power to transform lives and communities. We've explored how they teach us to reshape our narratives, connect deeply with others, and build resilient spaces of hope. As we look towards what tomorrow can bring, let's take these insights forward, cherishing the arts not only as a subject, but as a vital part of our human journey. Thank you for joining us on Artful Pods of Wisdom, where we believe in the power of every human to create and transform. Let's continue to paint our paths with the broad strokes of compassion, curiosity, and creativity. Until next time, thanks for joining the conversation.
You do your own hand tattoos, or did someone? Nice.